first big elections in the wake of presidency, tremendous success stories across the country. There's new leadership in the House of Representatives. Nancy Pelosi leans into these issues. She gets it. She's known it the whole time. She creates a select committee. There have been over 50 hearings on climate change in the last 8 months. Chuck Schumer created a new select committee with the Democrats in the Senate as well. People are chatting it up in D.C., which is good. You know, laying the groundwork for 2021. Even more importantly, in the short term, all kinds of governors ran on climate. State legislators ran on climate. They won. And so we're in this, and you've heard this before, here in Colorado and 10 other states around the country, an unprecedented moment of making progress on climate in state after state after state. New Mexico, Nevada, Colorado, Washington, even Idaho, the big utility said 100% clean. A red state, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Maine, Connecticut. The governors, the state legislatures are getting it. So elections have consequences, and we're starting to see progress in the states. But all this builds to, unless we have federal policy, we're not going to get there. So let me give you a couple, kind of where the voters are. There's some good news here for sure. Let me show you a couple pieces of some data points. All right, this slide. This is a 20-year slide going back to 99 to 2018. And the question is global climate change a serious problem and is immediate action necessary? Democrats, blue line, 42-point swing. Some 29% thought it was serious back then, over 70. Independents, the yellow line, big, double the number, 25, 47. The one challenge, let's be honest here, Republicans on this question have not moved at all in 20 years. So that's one of those challenges. We've talked about it. We used to, in the 90s and in the 70s, we had bipartisan support on this issue. And Trump has obviously not helped this because he's locked people in. But so a lot of good story, a lot of good progress. Next good story. This is Democratic primary voters. We did this survey back in with Center for American Progress and Environmental Defense Fund back in February. What's the most important issue to you? To our pleasant surprise, basically tied for first, healthcare and taking action on the climate crisis. That's never been true before. Democratic voters, this is their first or second issue. The second poll that was done, CNN did a poll in April. Climate change was the top issue for registered Democrats. 96% said taking action on climate. Again, this is the Democratic primary, and that's what's going on. So Democratic voters get this, and they really care about it. Again, the headlines across the country. You can't miss them. Place after place, state after state. We're seeing the real world impacts today. You've heard all that all week. I don't need to repeat all that stuff. But we just interviewed some of the Democratic candidates who had been in Iowa. They all tell an Iowa story about the floods that they saw when they were there. The candidates go to California. They talk about the wildfires. They talk about the droughts. Candidate after candidate. You can't miss what's really going on out there. So it's no longer it's coming in the future. We know this, and we've heard it from many other speakers, but the candidates are getting it, the voters get it, and the candidates are leaning in. Again, the 100% clean energy frame, we've heard about it. That's actually the most popular way to talk about it. Of those 11 states that just made progress, it started earlier with Hawaii, we heard about that earlier, and California did it beforehand. Of those 11 states, 7 of them have now put 100% clean energy goals forward. If you look at Democratic candidates who support the 100% clean energy are serious and thoughtful, are forward-thinking and bold. That's why you see the candidates leaning into climate change. It's no longer just something you should do. It's actually a winning political issue in the Democratic primary. Again, this is new. This is different. You remember back, Al Gore, when he ran for president in 2000, was told not to talk about climate change, and he basically didn't. We knew he was a champion. He didn't talk about it. 2004, John Kerry, he was a great champion as well. Didn't really talk about it. 2008, McCain and Obama, they were both decent. Wasn't part of the conversation. 2012, you never heard Obama talk about it. 2016, Hillary did a little bit of it, but remember, not a single question on climate was asked during a debate. So if this goes the way it should, for the first time, we're seeing it in a Democratic primary, but for the first time in the general election, whoever the nominee is, this will be part of the conversation because voters want to hear about it and the contrast no matter who the nominee is, has never been sharper. So I'm going to just a little plug for, we have a whole campaign going. It's called Change the Climate 2020. You can go to that website and you can see all the candidates in real time, what they're talking about on climate change. It changes every day. We're not trying to grade the candidates, but we've asked all of them a simple set of 7 questions. Do you support 100% clean energy? Do you support being a leader internationally? Will you not take fossil fuel money? Will you make this one of your top 3 priorities? And almost all of them have said yes to those questions, and they're up on the site, and they put their plans together. So, and again, our challenge, we're not trying to endorse someone in the primary. We're trying to create a race to the top. So each candidate is competing with the other candidates. Who's got the best plan? And you saw in the last couple of debates, not enough conversation, but as they did talk about it, my plan's better than your plan, my plan's better than your plan. So it's become this competition among the Democrats for the first time ever in a true race to the top. On September 4th, CNN is hosting a forum with all the candidates just talking about climate. MSNBC is doing the same thing on September 19th and 20th. So more conversation about climate than before. So that's all in the kind of positive, good news side. You can check out the details on that site. But again, Greenpeace has a site also. They grade the candidates. They give them all a letter grade. I think a guy named Inslee and a guy named Steyer have the best grades. And even Joe Biden has, I think, a B+ these days. So, there's a lot of ways that people are really wanting to be seen as a champ. Because back to those early slides, the voters actually, it's now for the first time a priority. And they want to hear, what's your plan? Is it bold? Is it aggressive? So all that's kind of like, setting us up for a decent place to land. I'm going to hold on this for a second. So a couple more thoughts. We've been talking a lot about what people can do. I don't know if John's still in the room, but the money, let me suggest, I'm not pitching us, but let me suggest one other thing to do with money. I want to get to time in a second. So for the first time, one of the most important things you can do is C3 money, non-political money, is actually register people to vote. And I've been working on these kinds of campaigns for 40 years, honestly. For the first time ever, more money is coming together early in the cycle. Remember, it's 445 days away. Most registration deadlines are 30 days in advance. But there's more money coming together centrally, a joint campaign with a lot of our groups, to basically look at 10 states, not random states, places like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, Florida, North Carolina, Colorado, etc. And very specifically with C3 money, focus on registering young people and people of color. You can do that with C3 money because they're underrepresented in the population. And there's literally going to be ideally $100 million campaign to register as many people as possible, people of color, and young people in those states, to make sure they're on the rolls, so then the campaigns and other groups, ourselves included, can then make sure they turn out. So if you want to think about an investment that hasn't been talked about, support the groups you like, make big gifts to them, endow them, as Hunter said, but think about investing in registering people. If this is, I think it is, the most important election of our lifetime, I wouldn't have thought we had to say that, but I think we have to say it now. Investing early in registering voters, focusing on young people and people of color, is the single most cost-effective, if you care about the election result, the single most important cost-effective investment you can make to have an impact on the election in a totally C3 way. So I encourage you to think about that. And in terms of the time and the acting, some of the most tried and true things are actually what still works. Literally, when you get down to those last couple weeks before an election, either in your own neighborhood, if you're from a swing state, like there's a Senate race, I think, here in Colorado, Tim, if I'm not mistaken, or there's a Senate race in Arizona, and there's a Senate race in North Carolina, there's a Senate race in Maine. These are like swing, Iowa, and there's presidential states like you know what they are. The single most important way you get people to turn out is you go knock on their door. Neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend. Groups are getting really good at this, targeting who to go knock on doors. If you think about your time and you care about the election, go figure out how you take a week, either in your home state, or go to Arizona, or go to North Carolina, or go to Nevada, or go to Michigan, or go to Pennsylvania. There's too much at stake. We can't lose this election. So the time to do that, and if you want to just sit in your home, people become more sophisticated by doing two things. You can literally sit there and do phone banks into those states, targeting infrequent voters. And the latest, this is not new, but it's just the last cycle, sit there and text people. Literally, these are tried and true methods that have been, kind of refined in the last couple cycles to get people, remind them. It's, we all know that when the elections are, my guess is that almost everyone in this room is going to vote. But you'd be surprised how many people still need that extra reminder, that extra push, that extra little second or third or fourth reminder to make sure that you're now. There are a lot of reasons why Hillary lost in 2016, but one of the biggest was people didn't vote in the numbers they should have in places like Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. That alone could have made the difference. So put your resources in a lot of great things, but think about putting resources into voter registration, and put your time, whether it's knocking on doors, sending texts, making phone calls, put your time into turning people out to vote. We have to win this election, and that's what's at stake. I'm going to show you just a sample. I think folks know ourselves, other groups made our biggest investment ever in politics in 2018. Again, great results. New House run with great leadership, people chairing committees who care about climate change. New governors, new state legislatures making tremendous progress around the way. We partnered with a guy named Mike Bloomberg a couple times. He wound up spending $100 million in this last election cycle, and most of it was spent on winners. Most of that went into the House. Probably gets more credit than anyone. And we partnered with him in some of those places, which is great. In case you missed it, he just announced he's going to spend $500 million just to help pass state policy. So he gets why the states are where the action is for the next 2-3 years to then build towards the federal. So so we did a lot of work with the Bloomberg folks, and they tested state by state, district by district, what messages might work. And they're not just going to do ads because they feel good. They want to do ads that they think are going to help people win. So I want to show you an ad that we wound up doing jointly with them in a very difficult district. It's Orange County, California, Southern California, historically Republican place, with a guy named Dana Rohrabacher being the incumbent in that seat. So here's the ad we did together with the Bloomberg team.
It's getting hotter. But while fire and smoke choke our air, Dana Rohrabacher is radically opposed to efforts to fight climate change.
Global warming is a fraud.
He voted against a plan to reduce carbon dioxide emissions and said extra carbon dioxide doesn't hurt people's health, siding with fossil fuel companies over California's environment. Too extreme and out of touch. Say no to Dana Rohrabacher.
So Harley Ruda is the new member of Congress. He's no longer a member of Congress. And this guy named Trump, you could actually substitute. He said almost the exact same stuff on the record. So 445 days, elections have consequences. The public's with us. Politicians are leaning in. Let's do it. Let's win. Thanks, folks.